My name is René. I hail from outside the great city of Chicago, Illinois. I am a 15-year domestic abuse survivor, and I'm also a 4-time suicide attempt survivor. And tonight, I asked Gertrude what she wanted me to talk about because I was pegged to do another evening. So I want to thank her again for the opportunity and for believing enough in me to share with you all on tonight. So before I get into what I'm going to do and what I want to tell you, because I left out one little small part of my story. One thing is too, I have a not-for-profit organization called For My Voice Matters that advocates for domestic violence and suicide prevention. So I'm gonna share a story that I know a couple people were on last night, so they'll know the story already, but I'm gonna share it kind of different tonight. So I want to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder. For those of you who don't know what it is, most people attribute it or they link it with war veterans, people who've been to war and they come back and they have all this anxiety and stuff like that. But post-traumatic stress disorder is not just for people of war. It can happen to anybody, anytime. Your trauma is not my trauma is not your trauma. So just understand that any trauma that you face could cause you to kind of go over into the post-traumatic stress disorder syndrome. And basically, it causes anxiety. So we're looking at anxiety. So something I'll give you an example, and then I'm going to go into my story. Then I'm going to finish this out because I'm not going to be before you long. So let's just say you're driving a car and you have a blowout on the expressway or the thoroughfare or however you all drive, wherever you all are at this time. And this blowout causes you to go over to the side of the road. You almost have an accident. The car possibly almost flips over. You lose an axle or something to that nature. You get it fixed to whereas you either get it towed, you change the tire yourself, someone else comes along and helps you, or whatever the case may be, and you get home. You're perfectly fine during that time. But when you, get up the very next day, and you're going out about your day and you have to get in your car to go to your next location or to your job or shopping or whatever you're going to do, you all of a sudden tense up. You all of a sudden think like, oh my God, if I get in this car again, I'm going to possibly have another flat tire. That's a trauma for you because the thing is, where you weren't afraid to drive before, you've been driving for years. This one incident happened and it knocked you, from what I say, off your square. So those kind of things of anxiety can cripple somebody, especially if you don't have anybody to lean on. But the thing is, how do you get past that point to be able to function again in life, especially if you live somewhere where there isn't public transportation, or if you don't have anybody to rely on you to drive you back and forth. If there's no such thing like over here in the States, I'm not sure if you all have them in your country, we have things called Uber or Lyft, or what they're called is shared ride services. If you don't have those things to get you to and forth, what are you going to do? So you have to push past it. Some trauma deserves or needs professional help. I'm all for therapy. I'm all for you getting the help that you need to get past your trauma. Some traumas you may be able to get past yourself, but what you have to do is identify your trigger to make sure that you can get past it. Okay. So what can PSD cause, or what are signs of PTSD? What are things that happen? So you could be hyperarousal. Hyperarousal means, just like I said, I use the car thing as a thing. So anything that deals with tires, anything that deals with motor vehicles, anything that comes along in nature, it causes you to tense up. That's hyperarousal. That means that particular incident or that particular item causes you to trigger something in your brain to make you say that you don't want to do it. Flashbacks. While you're standing there in the middle of it, you could be having a flashback. That whole picture of your car spinning around, you might be going over an edge, you might almost hit a wall, you might almost hit another vehicle, but that whole movie, our brains are miraculous things. They cause us where you could almost see a full-fledged picture of what happened, like it's happening again, like right in front of your eyes. So that's a flashback. You avoid. Avoidance is a big thing of it. So now, like I said, you don't want to get back into your car because you don't want to have, you don't want that incident to possibly happen again. So you avoid a car at all costs. At least you driving the car. You may get in the car with somebody else, but you'll avoid driving it for fear that you may have a blowout. You have mood changes. So if you didn't share with somebody that this event happened to you, like say for instance, you just took care of it yourself, you called AAA, you changed the tire yourself, whatever the case may be, and now you're kind of snappy with your family members, you're snappy with your friends, or somebody says, well, can you come get me? No, I don't want to, I can't come get you. But you don't explain to them what the problem is. They haven't done anything to you. So they're kind of figuring like, I just, like trying to figure out like, why is your mood change? Why are you now so snappy with me? Things of that nature. So what I said was I was going to share a part of my story that I had not shared in the beginning. And last night I shared it, and it's a part of me. I'm excited about it because one, like I said, I attempted suicide 4 times. But this other trauma that hit me, I had no control over. So I'm gonna, if everybody's listening, if you can, like, you got, some of you guys got your camera off and that's fine. But if you kind of close your eyes, I'm a visual person and I want to paint a picture for you. Okay. So if you guys can close your eyes or either turn off your camera where where you're not looking at me, but I want you to kind of hear my voice. It's going to be calm. This is a safe place. Of course, I'm not anywhere in your vicinity, so it's not like I could do anything to you, so you can trust me. So I want you to picture a vehicle driving down a simple residential street. There are houses on both sides, and you pull into a driveway or a parkway in front of a house. You get out of the car and you walk towards the porch or the entryway of your home. There is a person that comes from behind a tree. Now, you thought you possibly that they're just at the wrong house, wrong neighborhood. Maybe they're just walking to the neighbor's house, but all of us walking on your ankle. They don't address you. They don't say hello. They don't ask you how you doing. They don't ask for directions. So you get kind of nervous. So in turn, you turn around and you walk back to your vehicle because you feel more safer going to your car to get in it, whether you're going to call the police or by chance maybe run the person over if they try something. Okay. In the midst of you walking back to your vehicle, the person then calls you an obscene name. So you turn around because they have your attention. And when you look at them, they pull out a pistol. Before you know it, you turn to run. Pow! The first shot is lit off. Pow, pow, pow! 3 more shots. Now you can open your eyes. If you can hear me and you can see me, you can open your eyes. So the other part of my story is I am someone who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. Why? Because I'm the lady who I just described in the situation. I was coming home from a church service. I was walking into my home and an assailant called me out of my name, pulled out a pistol, shot me 1 time. That first shot, I believe, is the shot that paralyzed me. I fell to the ground. He stood over me and he shot me 3 more times and walked away. I never lost consciousness. I was, after family members came outside for me yelling and screaming, 911 was called. When the ambulance arrived, I was taken to a local trauma center and I was put in surgery for 4.5 hours. Now, the story of it is, of course, this is where we talk about, where I'm going to talk to you about somebody helping you through it. Somebody has to be a witness or be accountable for what's going on. So for me, I had to find out, I had to ask questions about what happened to me because I did not know. I knew I was shot, but afterwards, I did not know what had happened to me. So I was in surgery for 4.5 hours. All of my vital organs was hit except for my heart. I had a bullet hit. Okay, so there were 4 bullets. 1 was in and out, 1 was a graze, and 2 ricocheted off of every organ in my body except my heart. One of the bullets put the size of a quarter in my 12th vertebrae and nicked my spinal cord. My lungs collapsed on the operating table. And they had to close me up and leave 2 bullets inside of me because I coded on the table as well. When I come to, I find out that I'm paralyzed. But here's the miracle of God. So I don't know what you all believe in. I'm a woman of great faith, and I do believe in God. But whatever your higher power source is, I tell people all the time, you need to tap into it whenever there's an issue. And I had several people praying for me. The fact being that I made it out of surgery alive was one. But now I'm paralyzed and I'm facing possibly a life-changing, other than life-changing event physically. I'm already going to be challenged mentally, but definitely physically. But here's the miracle. I was paralyzed for 2.5 days, up walking by the 5th day, out of the hospital by the 8th day. They left the 2 bullets inside of me, of course, because they couldn't get them. But those bullets within 9 months gravitated to my right side where I could go back in and have what they call minor surgery for them to pull them out. If I did not tell you that I was a gunshot victim, you would never know by looking at me. That's another miracle. And I'm excited about it. So what I tell people is everybody's trauma is different. And my trauma has been for the last 12 years, because this happened December 28th of 2008, is that every African-American male at some point in time is kind of suspect. But I had to move past it. Why? Because I can't live my life in fear. I can't live my life constantly wondering if the next person is going to come and kill me, because they never found my shooter. They never found the gun. And I believe wholeheartedly that my ex-husband sent somebody to kill me, and they never were able to connect the dots. So technically my case became a cold case. So now I have to deal with the fact being that if I walk out on the street at any given moment, I could possibly be shot. I actually, at that point in time during my life, I was a United States postal letter carrier. So that meant I had to eventually go back to the street and carry mail. So can you imagine being out on the street and someone approaching you that could possibly be the person that shot you the first time, or somebody else, if your ex-husband is still mad and upset, that he sends someone else out to take your life? That triggered me really, really bad. So I was telling the conference last night that for me, at that time, I put everything in my truck when I got approached by a customer, and I shut down, and it took them probably most of the day to find me because they couldn't communicate with me, because back then we didn't have GPS, we didn't have ways to locate vehicles and things like that. And by the time they found me, I pretty much was locked in my car, holding my steering wheel like this, and I had broke down, I don't know how many times. And that's when I realized I needed professional help. From the professional help, I realized that I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. Let me just be real. There are several ways to treat and what's the word I'm looking for? Assist with post-traumatic stress disorder. One way is medication. And I'm a big fan of that as well, because when your anxiety is on 10, sometimes normal things that would normally calm you down will not. And at that point in time, that was something that I felt that I needed, and I agreed to it. Because of course, nobody can really force you to take anything you really don't want to. But after talking with my therapist and talking with my actual physician, that was the first step of recovery for me. And what I tell people all the time is triggers, which trauma happens, it's a trigger. Triggers never really go away. What we learn to do is we learn to adapt, and we learn how to adjust, and we learn how to work through our triggers. Big example, let's just say grief. You lose a loved one. I'll use myself as an example. I lost my mom 4 years ago to pancreatic cancer. And most times I'm good. But at any given moment, you know, if I see something that reminds me of her, if I go to the living room where I keep her box of obituaries and the cards from the flowers, things like that, I might have a moment. It triggered me. So I have to take some deep breaths, calm down, and bring it back. She's not coming back. People will tell you that time heals all wounds and life goes on. This is true. However, for someone to tell you that you'll get over it, for someone to tell you that time, will heal it, everybody is different. So those are not terms that you technically should use with people, because I deal with things a whole lot differently than somebody else does. I hadn't cried about my mom in probably about a year and a half. And one day, like about a month ago, I was doing some cleaning, some dusting, and I took the box out, I dusted it, and I opened it up, and the tears just flew. I mean, I was boohooing. I couldn't breathe and everything. It was bad. It was bad, y'all. It was bad. But I know that even 10 years from now, if I don't cry for 10 years, there may be something that I think about. It may be a picture I see that will still trigger me to that moment. And what do I do in that moment? But work through the moment, not try to run from it or hide it, because it'll keep coming back. And sometimes if we don't deal with triggers head on, they'll come back more intense the next time. So what I tell people are, a good way to deal with triggers is, one, identify the trigger. So whatever the trigger is, if for me, it's like I said, African American male. So even though I live in a world where they're around me almost every day, every other day or something like that, unless I stay in my house, I've learned to take deep breaths. I've learned to not tense up so bad, but even force myself to even speak, so I could take control and take my power back from being upset about the trigger. So I'm big on meditation, breathing exercises, and self-care. Self-care is so important, whether it be massages, whether it be, again, therapy, whether it be adult coloring books. You have to do those things to take care of yourself. So I'm going to give you 6 more steps, and then I'm going to yield the mic. Okay. So with that being said, you have to give yourself time to accept what happened. Sometimes I'll use the trauma of, let's use trauma of rape. I don't talk about it often, but I'm also a rape victim too. I was raped at 15. And being raped at 15, I didn't tell anybody. I kind of act like it didn't happen. I didn't accept it until I got older and was trying to have a real relationship with a gentleman, and I had to face my issue. So I would tell people all the time, give yourself time to accept what happened. If you have to write it out, if you have to journal it, if you have to deal with it, you have to deal with it head on. 2, like I said, for myself, some traumas happen and you may not remember right away. So for me, when I got shot, of course, being under in the operating room, I did not know what happened. So I had the doctors come back and explain to me exactly what all they had to do. How many times was I shot? Because I only felt 1 bullet. And your body, or for me, your body my adrenaline shot up so much, I didn't even hear the other 3 shots. I had to be told by my family that they heard 2 or 3 more shots, and the doctors confirmed there were 4. So I had to find out exactly what happened so I could learn how to process in everything mentally. 3 and 4. So people who deal with trauma, the best thing you could do is find some people who have like traumas, and then also find you some support. Support groups are excellent. Some people feel like they shouldn't. It has to be done in your own time, but I'll tell you, when you get with some people who have actually can understand or relate or empathize with what you've been through, even though it may not be the same, it's so much better to be able to be open with those people, because there's no judgment. It's a safe place, and you kind of weigh the balance of, and you're able to help each other. You're able to kind of bounce ideas off each other, help each other get through and find different ways of dealing with said trauma. I already said self-care. Talk about it. When you're ready, you should talk about it. For me, talking about it has helped me a great deal in the last 12 years. I didn't talk about it I didn't talk about the abuse. I didn't talk about the shooting or anything for at least 5 or 6 years. And now, look at me. I'm speaking internationally at a conference. I've held several stages throughout the United States. I've spoken Mexico, I've spoken Jamaica. I've written a book called Assassination Avoided, Destiny Defined, which is a book about surviving domestic violence, and it gives tools and tips for people to notice and look for signs of abuse. I'm actually about to release my second book. I have made several connections throughout the country. I have a non-for-profit organization called For My Voice Matters. From that organization, I've helped several other organizations, because I'm not an organization that actually intakes people. What I do is I advocate for the system. I hold events to give awareness, and then any monies that I raise, I give them and donate them to other organizations. And with that being said, I've built relationships throughout the country, so I can go and talk at shelters. I can do other events, and I can raise money and awareness that way. But me being able to talk about it has helped and has freed me. I'm at the point now where I'm also coaching. So I am a trauma recovery coach. So people come to me for master classes, and we talk about it. We figure out the triggers, and I walk them through a 6-week program. Get into a routine. This is the last one. Routines. Sometimes monotony is good, but then sometimes it cannot be. So for a while, until you get past the particular trauma, until you work yourself through things, you may have to put yourself on a particular routine so that you can identify the trauma and actually be able to work around it or through it until you're actually ready to deal with it head on. But the first thing and foremost, I would say definitely find a therapist, or if you're not ready for a therapist, you need to find some type of life coach or someone who, like myself, who's dealt with the trauma, who would be empathetic and understand what you're going through. So with that being said, I'm done. Really, that's it. So when we're talking about PTSD, you just really need to identify triggers and try to work through the triggers, and not just push the trigger to the side saying you'll get over it or ignore it. Because what happens is, just like with anything else, you ignore something, the issue will enlarge itself, and it may cause you more issues later. So thank you for the floor, and I appreciate it. You all have a good evening.